if you can show care to one of her patients, you go in, you meet Becky on the way out, you see a woman with flowers on her shirt. I like your shirt. What kind of flower is that? Oh, it's a bluebonnet. And then next time you show up, hey, Becky, I just happen to be around bluebonnets. I got this for such and such. Just thought I'd say hi to you. What are they going to possibly say? We don't take sales calls. Do you know what I'm saying?
So I want to welcome everyone to the Duet NEMT Growth podcast episode here. We've got Christopher Buell with us. He is, an incredible sales guy. I've had multiple people tell me like, hey, this is one of the best in the business. And so I'm really excited to interview him. Like, one of the things we try to do at Duet is have a software that's, not only good at managing operations, but actually helps you get more trips. So it's hard to imagine a better guest. Christopher, maybe you could give us a little context. I mean, you've been in NEMT for decades. What has that been like? What's your background? How did you get to be sort of the go-to guy on calling facilities?
It's a good question. I don't even know where to begin. I never particularly thought of myself as a super great salesperson. Having said that, it's a little bit of a funny story. My dad was a sales guy his whole life. He was a sales manager, and he drilled little sales things into me all the time. The first time I started a non-emergency transportation company, I bought it, okay? They said they had 100% of Hospice of Arizona's business. And so and the reason they were selling it was because they were growing to the point where they needed employees. And they had 3 vans, and the 2 of them ran it. And it was getting more than they wanted to handle. They had a system. And so after I bought it, I wasn't buying 100% of Hospice of Arizona's business. I was actually buying, I became the third call because they didn't have a relationship with me. So they being hospice, this particular hospice, knew that Curtis and Gustavo were selling. And like one of the new vendors that came in was the vice president's son. So I went from number 1 to number,
That's
I'm
rough.
the last call on the list. I almost had like a worse than a startup because I was paying for 3 vans and 3 insurances. And, I had enough work for like a half of 1 van. So at the end of the day, my first company, I grew it to about 11 vans, and it was hard. It was really hard. It was no brokers. It was all private pay. And I ended up selling it. And I ended up getting a divorce and, just life happened. And, I went back to non-emergency transportation. My ex-wife moved to Arkansas, and I wanted to be around my son. And, I started with 1 van a second time. I don't know anything about Arkansas. And I just started. And Arkansas is very, very cliquish. Like, I'm not one of them. And, in the end, it didn't matter. What mattered was knocking on doors. What mattered was working hard. And I've been doing this a long time, so I believe there's very, very little in life that I know a lot about. And I know a lot about doing non-emergency transportation sales.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was trial and error. And, again, looking backwards, bad sales beats no sales.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned like you didn't even know brokers existed. I understand you're a big advocate for going after private pay and facility trips over brokers. Can you sort of help people understand like why even bother to learn how to call facilities instead of taking only broker trips?
My experience with brokers is almost all bad. So there was a period of time, I haven't told this story in years. There was this period of time where I got in with a local politician in Arkansas. She kind of had a heart for me and what I was trying to do with non-emergency transportation. And I don't want to get off track, but she and I became friends, okay? And during this time, I actually somehow, some way got chosen as the number 1 provider for Arkansas for this particular broker. Like the federal government sends money to DHS distributes it. I was the number 1 call. And
Wow.
And like one day, I couldn't believe it. My phone was ringing off, slamming, tons of business. I ended up this particular year going with this particular politician to the governor's ball. So, the governor won. I was her guest, and I went with her, and I met like this head of DHS, and he was like, "You made it, man. You got nothing to worry about. You made it. you're the number one call. And there was some inside politics going on. And, here I am in my tuxedo and with this person, and a week later they dropped me.
Oh,
And
no.
they never paid me.
Of course.
And it ended up just being a complete nightmare. And I have kind of stories on top of stories where brokers they'll overwhelm you with work. And you think, oh my God, that's great. And you got a check for $10,000. And then the next month, maybe the check is $7,000. Maybe the check is a little bit later. And you think, well, they're still giving me all this work. Eventually they're going to pay me. No, they're not going to pay you. Look, and it's so tough to say because, there are brokers that are decent. But one of the questions, and the thing is, why do we want to, what you just asked me, why do we want to diversify and get the private pay? Because when you're dealing with a broker, it's not really your business. You're a glorified employee of that broker. A lot, and again, this is so tough to say because there are really, really good, really decent brokers. But kind of sort of when people talk about brokers, they're not talking about the really good ones that are essentially just another client. They pay well. They don't overwhelm you with runs, but the ones that, they're going to promise you all this business, and maybe they do give it to you for a while. Again, they keep you so busy with low paying runs. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And just sort of over time, I learned, I go get some hospital service agreements, or whatever. I can charge a lot more. I can get paid when I want to get paid. So again, my business model, I will say, I don't think anybody should screen out anything. I think that, you should take a look at all brokers. I mean, maybe your area is great. My problem is I don't want to give over 50% of my time, energy, and effort to a broker. You get 10%. And maybe we do business for a year, and the next year I'll give you 15%. But I can't be top heavy on a broker that may not be there tomorrow or may decide not to pay me or whatever the case is. So
yeah, I've seen cases where somebody was doing 20 vehicles doing all work for one broker. Then they have a disagreement on price, of falling out with the broker, 0 trips, the company goes under. Like it's so dangerous to have all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, it's not your business, it's their business, but you don't get any. Yeah, I mean, you get all the bad parts of being the business owner. You get to buy the new tires, you get to deal with the employees, but you don't get the benefits.
So thinking about how we go out and get facility contracts. I mean, the first question is sort of who do you even go and talk to? Like, what sort of facilities are top priority in your mind for reaching out to about NEMT trips?
Well, I will say this, I do have clients that come to me, and I have the NEMT Alliance where I kind of teach everything, and I have specific answers. For today, I would say you don't screen out anybody. You learn how to create a prospect list, and you let the universe know. And I can tell you there have been so many times that I think, why am I even calling this person? And it ends up being a great contact. So don't, the way I grew my business is I'm either driving a vehicle or I'm doing a sales call, and that's it. So if you absolutely don't like to do sales, I do recommend you outsourcing that part to me, my company, whatever. But a lot of people are, sales is less about words coming out of your mouth and more about how you make the customer feel. So, in other words, a vehicle shows up to a nursing home or something. The vehicle's dirty. It cuts somebody off on the way getting over there. The driver smells like weed and cigarettes. The administrator doesn't care what the price is. They don't care that we're not using you. The sales really happens over a period of time, and that period of time is approaching them in the right way, being presentable when you're there, being professional. And a lot of times, if there's objections or whatever, they'll come up later. But as far as who do you let know, don't screen anybody out. You let everybody know. You let the universe know.
Yeah, and you're only covering so much service area. There's no reason you can't reach out to every single facility in that area over, some time. If you are, maybe we could draw a distinction between, say, hospital discharge trips and sort of the more rehab facility, nursing home type of facilities. Would you approach sales calls to those two groups differently, or is it kind of the same process either way?
Well, I would approach them differently in terms of my actual technique, but I will say I'm going to lead with value in both cases. So, you have to know who to ask for, but from that you got to lead with value, and you got to be confident in your product. So
What's
that
like the short version? What is the value a hospital looks for that's different than the value of nursing home?
Well, I would say that the secret with a hospital is the person who signs the service agreement cares about the price. By the way, here's a free lesson. Write this down. Don't ever say contract. Hey, I want to get a contract. Nobody wants to sign contracts. People will sign service agreements, but that's just a little little thing. But the person at a hospital that signs a service agreement, that person cares about the price. But once it's approved, the guy that's putting the order in doesn't care about the price. The guy that's putting the order in cares that you say yes. And I will say that, like, one of the differences that you just mentioned. I remember when I was had my second business in Arkansas, and I was walking up and down the halls just giving out my business card. And I met this guy, and he goes, you know what? We'll use you on weekends. The guy that we use right now, he won't work weekends. So we'd love. And I remember at the time, my heart sank. Man, I'm not the weekend guy. I'm the main event guy. Don't give me this, But I was an idiot because people are lazy. And nobody's going to remember this is the weekend guy, this is the night guy, this is the stretcher guy. They call the guy that says yes. Again, like, what is it? What is the difference? That's a big difference. Is the hospital wants to hear you say yes. The nursing home, I can't stress it enough. You have to come across as someone, and your drivers have to come across as someone that is professional. But you think about it from the point of view of an administrator. And say they never met you. Say they just looked you up, got your number, gave you the order, you did the run, and there was a problem. There was an accident, a fight, I don't know, any kind of problem. That family of that loved one that you were taking is going to say to the administrator, did you meet them or did you just call a number? That administrator better say, no, I met with them and they made a great impression and I don't know what happened. So that is big time. Don't send somebody there that you can't put in the van with grandma.
That's a great answer. I really appreciate that, Christopher. So I suppose the next step would be, you've made a list of facilities, you've targeted every single facility in your area, you know who you want to call. Now, how do you sort of get past the gatekeeper? Because often a big problem people run into in cold calls is they call, okay, somebody picks up, but it's not the transport coordinator answering sort of the initial phone call. What is your approach to getting to the right person?
The magic is the second call, is the third call. The magic doesn't happen on the first call. And, this is why most people fail at sales in general. It doesn't even matter about non-emergency transportation. It's because you want to one and done it. You want to say, well, I called him, or man, I went by. That's not realistic. Okay. What happens is, can I get an email? Can I drop off information? Can I get something from you, Mr. Customer? And a lot of times these people are trained to get rid of you. And so I'm going to tell you another great secret. Write this down. Fax numbers are brilliant. People do not want to give emails. Emails are very personal. Fax numbers, in my opinion, are almost better. And the reason it's better is because it can go to a whole team, or if it's an old, like it's digital these days. But even if there's an old school one, you have the possibility of more people seeing it. But again, a fax, a brochure, a business card, it's all bull crap. And it's a tool the salesperson uses when he calls back. I called a couple days ago and I sent a fax for such and such. I was following up to see who got it, if they got it. And all of a sudden your call is elevated. You're not a salesperson. You're something else. And the lady that's answering the phone, the gatekeeper, she doesn't know how to process it. So a lot of times she'll say, well, who did you send it to? Well, I sent it to the such and such department, your transportation department. Well, that's Becky. I write down Becky, and either I get Becky or I don't. I don't really care because I got a name now. And so 2 days later, I'll call back and say, is Becky there? Well, is she expecting your call? No, I faxed her like a week ago. I never heard back. So that's what a salesperson does.
I would like give it to Becky.
Yeah.
So maybe, on the subject of sort of hospitals versus rehabs and nursing homes, what role are you asking for? If you don't have their name yet, but you're trying to figure out who the right person to talk to, like what are the titles you would use? You
can say, can I speak with the person that sets up your transport?
That's easy.
Yeah, that'll work. And I use that all the time. You always got to lead with the truth. And, like say addiction centers, some use us, some don't. And again, the same technique can work. I'm with, you don't even say who you're with unless they ask. But I mean, basically, is there somebody there that sets up transfers? Well, we don't use that kind of service. Okay, thank you. Go on to the next one.
And I think a lot of people struggle like, okay, I know who to call, I call, but what do I say? Is what you just described sort of what you do in the first 15 seconds? Or what is your first, sentence out of your mouth sound like?
Well, I will tell you, I have little tricks and tips that I give for very specific places, but I'm not talking about that right now. So again, you can use that every single time, and I use it every single day. I will call up and just say, can I get an email? Can I get a fax? And they almost 99 times out of 100, if they have a fax machine, they're going to give you the fax number. And then before I hang up, hey, my company does non-emergency transportation. Is there anyone I should address this to? Okay. And they already feel committed, because they already gave you the fax. Well, you can address it to, and it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter. So if they say just address it to transportation, it doesn't matter, because 2 days later, I'm going to call up and say, can I speak with transportation? And they're going to say, well, what is this in regards to? And I'm going to say, well, I sent them a fax a couple of days ago. I just want to make sure they got it. And a lot of times, I'm not even lying. What is this in regards to? My company provides non-emergency transportation. I was just hoping to share the info.
Yeah, that makes total sense. In terms of like, what are the most common objections you get? Assuming this is a business that is a potential customer for you, they do have transport business to give out. What is the common objection you hear, and how do you get around it?
Well, I will hear, we're already using somebody else. I hear that a lot. And my response is, yeah, that's okay. I just want to share the information, have you stick it in your back pocket, and if you ever need us, give us a holler. And the truth of the matter is, if you're brand new to this industry, nobody needs you. Everybody's doing great without you. Everybody has a non-emergency company they're using. It's a double-edged sword, because it's hard to be perfect in this industry. And what I mean by perfect is, you never say, no, Mr. Customer, I can't be there till tomorrow. And they're going to say, fine, okay, you know what? Christopher's been calling me. We need him. They don't need you today, but they'll probably need you tomorrow. And I always say that, like, I'm planting seeds, and I don't know when the seeds will sprout, but they always sprout. And so
yeah, I absolutely see that. You had talked, I know a big thing you're a fan of is saying, hey, this is a service agreement, this is not a contract, this is a partnership, not a sales relationship. How else do you sort of make it feel like a partnership for the potential customer?
I let them know I want to, my company would love to have a relationship with you guys. What do you do? What are your experiences now? And if they say we're absolutely 1,000% happy, okay, that's fine. That's today. Stick it in your back pocket. If you need me tomorrow, that would be great. And like I said, it's a double-edged sword, because one day that's going to be you. One day you're going to have 10, 15, 20 vans, whatever the number is, and you're going to have to say, no, Mr. Customer, and just know a competitor of yours is taking that run now.
So what is your goal on these calls? I realize it may take 1, 2, 3, 4 calls to get to the right person, but let's say we get Becky on the phone. Are you trying to close Becky right then and there, or what is the goal of the call exactly? What is this?
The goal is always to create a relationship. That's what I want. I want an actual relationship with that company, and I want to lead with value, and I want to wait. And like, the idea is you know the game plan before you get into it. And the game plan is we have to plant a lot of seeds, and we'll wait for them to sprout. And so that's what you do. You knock on a lot of doors, you let the universe know who you are, and you do your follow-ups. And you just follow up.
Are you trying to convert this into an in-person meeting at some point? Or you
that would be the best.
Sort of get the fax in there and get the brochure in there and let it go?
Yeah, I want an in-person meeting. So the phone call is the tool to get you the in-person meeting, because the in-person meeting is where the relationship happens. And what I mean by that is, like, I want to know about their business. If you can possibly sit down to do a needs analysis, find out what their needs are. But, if you actually care about them and what they do, that's going to come through. And the things, like, I almost, you had mentioned about closing. You don't close anybody. Think about that. Nobody closes you. people don't get closed. This isn't the 70s you know what I'm saying? It's people close themselves. And the way in which they close themselves is by building value and by building the relationship and building trust. And that's how it's done. And also, a part of this is waiting for the opportunity.
And so you're on the phone with Becky, you see that opportunity. What do you frame the in-person meeting as? Is it sort of a, oh, I was in the area, I dropped by with some donuts for you and your staff, or is it like, Becky, let's find a time. I want to learn exactly what your needs are and your problems are, so I can be the best possible provider I can be.
That's actually in all of the above, because the best case scenario is, Becky, let's sit down and have a needs analysis. But I say relationship because to a degree, it's like you're dating. And if she's not ready to sit down and have the needs analysis, then we'll take what we can get. We'll do what she is ready for. And if we can just do hey, I was in your area. And I'll tell you, if you can show care to one of her patients, you go in, you meet Becky, on the way out, you see a woman with flowers on her shirt. And you say to the patient that's at a nursing home, for example, I like your shirt. What kind of flower is that? Oh, it's a bluebonnet. And then next time you show up, hey, Becky, I just happen to be around bluebonnets. I got this for such and such. Just thought I'd say hi to you.
Oh, that's so nice. That's really thoughtful.
What are they going to possibly say? We don't take sales calls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm giving Becky a bluebonnet. So that's why I mean, like, how you lead with value and you want to develop a relationship.
Wow, you're bringing people flowers. This really is like dating.
I mean, or you know, anything. Like I see you reading an Agatha Christie book, and the other day I was at a swap mart and I picked one up for a nickel. That woman that you gave the book to, she's only going to request you if she needs transportation. Do you know what I'm saying? Because now you have a relationship with her.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So in these in-person visits, besides, flowers or books or whatever you want to bring to sort of deepen the relationship, what kind of promotional material, if you want to call it that, should you bring about your own service?
I believe that you need the basics. You need to let them know the hours that you're available, your phone number, and I like prices. That's me. I have clients that choose to just call me and I'll let you know the quote. I like having my prices out there. And there's something to me that strikes it as more honest and easier. So again, I have everything the customer could possibly need to make a decision. Because again, like a lot of these places are going to take your brochure and give it to their patients. Like,
right.
Oh, hey, our facility doesn't pay. We don't pay. Well, we can give it to a patient, and the patient could pay.
So I wanted to ask, a couple times you've said, hey, I give them the first call, a couple days later, I'll give them another call. What does your kind of follow-up cadence look like in general? Is it really like, every couple days you're calling the same facility? Or
No. But I will tell you that I use a spreadsheet, and I write down everything. So if I talk to Becky, I write that I talked to Becky and on this and such and such date. But it's a little bit like I said, of what you can get away with. So if I know there's somebody there, I might call a couple times in a row, trying to get to that correct person. And then maybe if I don't get them, I'm going to leave a message. And I might give it a week to call back to see if they ever got the message. So, there is a fine touch with, you don't want to piss people off. You don't want to be overly annoying. But yeah, I'm probably going to call a couple different times.
Circling back to something you said earlier, like, okay, you get that meeting, you go in, you're talking to Becky, you have a good meeting. You come back, you tell your team, I had a good meeting. How do you convert that into actually getting trips from the facility? Like, what's the gap between like feeling like you had a good productive talk and getting trips? Are you literally just sort of setting the ball in their court and letting them call you when they're ready, or is there kind of follow-up you do to nurture that?
There's a little, again, it's funny because to some degree, sales is like, I don't know if it's science or art or feeling. Like, I kind of know when to push and when to back off. And I think the more you do it, the more you're going to learn that. But I will say, like, what kind of keeps me going is I don't worry about it. Okay. You make the presentation, you do the best you can. You've got to, like, again, if you have a good company at a good price and you make a good presentation, like, why wouldn't they use you? Mm-hmm. And again, like we're leading with, I keep saying we care about them, and that's going to come through. And if you believe in your product and you make the calls, it's going to happen. It always does.
So I know you're a big fan of building credibility, because as a new NEMT provider, you don't necessarily have credibility. They're using somebody already. I know I've seen on NEMT Alliance, like you talk about the value of awards and some of these other ways of sort of establishing yourself.
Yeah.
Could you speak to sort of why that's important, and then what kind of ways you can build a reputation?
Well, so for those who don't know, I basically do two different things. I have a website, a business called the NEMT Solution Center. The NEMT Solution Center is basically where you hire me or my company to pick up the phone and make sales calls on behalf of your company. However, the NEMT Alliance is a membership platform where, number one, I teach people everything I know about non-emergency transportation sales. There's some digital downloads that'll certainly help you. But going to what you're talking about, I actually have a way for people to get nominations. So if you want to nominate your driver, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'll tell you the backstory on this. The backstory on this is when I first started doing what I'm doing now, which is making sales calls on behalf of other companies, it took me a little while to build up the clientele, etc. So I had to basically offer my services as a salesperson to any business. And one time, I had a realtor membership program contact me, and I sold these memberships for this real estate company, or this association. And so why would somebody want to be a part of that? Well, because it adds credibility. They could say with their NAC rep, and they got a little badge, and they had the opportunity to win awards and things like that. And I thought, we need this for our industry. And the truth of the matter is, this like if you were to go to the NEMT Alliance and you want to nominate your driver, you can absolutely do that, and you'll get a little nomination thing from me, and we'll pick a driver of the year or a dispatcher of the year or whatever. But it's another sales tool. So like you just said, it gives you some instant credibility. But where it really speaks is when you get into trouble. So when you do have the thing that goes wrong and your client says to you, how could you have possibly hired a driver that did that? How could you possibly have done X, Y, and Z? You could say, listen, Mr. Customer, I think you're right, and I'm sorry, we're going to fix it, but that doesn't represent my entire company. I do want you to know that there's an independent association for the non-emergency transportation industry, and I've had a driver nominated 4 out of the last 5 months to be recognized as a great driver. And so, like, it's a sales tool. It's a sales tool.
That's really clever.
You can put it in your thing. And like one of the things that I'm kind of getting ready to launch is doing email campaigns on behalf of my clients. Because what happens is I spend all this time making the phone calls, getting the emails, building the database. And, people use me when they need me and then they go away. But like, that email shouldn't go to waste, and we should be retargeting always the prospects in your area. And what a great thing to do is to say, just have an email highlight your driver that just won an award.
Yeah, that's a much better way to reach out to people than just, hey, just checking in, just circling back.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why we do it.
That's fantastic. All right, so I think, I would love to sort of, as people have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. So I think Perry has one right now, actually. Good timing, Perry. Perry says, I'm in a market with a lot of competitors who are making sales calls, different than LA. How do I differentiate myself from them? I know the value proposition is key, but what else should I be doing?
Well, this is difficult. The reason I hesitate is because I would need an actual conversation where I would like to know how many places he's visited. So if my Alliance members, I teach them how to create a prospect list. And a prospect list shouldn't have less than 1,000 contacts. And I do believe that people are starting to learn how to do non-emergency transportation sales. But the scale, there's more clients, generally speaking. I mean, maybe there's a situation where you're just in an area that it doesn't exist. But for the most part, because I've learned this the hard way, there's more prospects out there than you realize. And there's always different ways to differentiate yourself from the competition. It does. So, I mean, let's say, getting a 15-passenger van and working with, activities directors to do activities, to do ice cream socials, to do whatever. Like, It doesn't matter. Like most non-emergency companies don't have 15 passenger vans. Most non-emergency companies, they don't have stair chairs. So there's going to be an area where the market is lacking. But so number one, you got to find out where those areas are lacking. Number two, I promise you, there's probably more customers than you realize.
I've often heard people mention testimonials as a way to stand out. What's your take on, do you think that's true compared to some of these other great ideas you've mentioned? And if so, how do you get good testimonials?
Well, I actually think testimonials speak volumes. And especially in today's age, we're kind of designed to go to Amazon and read the reviews, go to Google,
That's what I do.
and read the reviews. And those do matter. And again, so if you are established and you have these reviews, that's another thing that you can stick in your email campaign. Take a screenshot of your latest review. Thank you. Whatever. Nobody's going to sing your praises like you do. So you kind of got to shout it from the rooftops, hey, look at these testimonials I got. But yeah, there's a guy that I've been watching recently on YouTube. So I'm always trying to learn a little bit, and I'm sure you'll know that he's this buff gym guy, and he talks about you just fill your office up with him. Take pictures, take screenshots of all the Google reviews and put it in your office. Again, if you don't have Google reviews, you go to the NGM Alliance and get some certificate of nominations. So there's ways to beef it up and make your credibility count.
You go give your grandmother a ride and have her write you a review.
There you go.
In your office. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. What other questions do people have? Perry's curious about, I think some of my customers are getting their foot in the door by offering to do some of the insurance billing. Interesting. As much as I dread that, I feel like I'm missing out on another opportunity. Can you speak to billing insurance companies directly?
It is 100% an area I know close to nothing about. But I recently had a guy come to me based out of Austin, and that's what he does. And he, in the past, if somebody said to me, Christopher, I'd like to get set up with Medicare or Medicaid, I tell him that I'm not the guy. Go talk to someone else. I found the someone else. And this guy in Austin, he will, so there's people that you can partner with to do that. The whole medical billing, it's just not my thing.
I feel you. I have somebody in California who one of our customers uses and loves, and she bills the United Healthcare and all these health plans directly. These guys, some of these billers can be expensive, but if you are suddenly able to accept $300 trips that are getting billed to a health insurance instead of going through brokers or other intermediaries, it can really quickly pay for itself. Often they'll do kind of success-based fees, and so if you can bill the easy stuff yourself and then say, hey, for all my United Healthcare, all my Aetna, all my Blue Cross Blue Shield bills that I don't want to deal with, I'm going to hand this off to a professional who will put the right billing codes on there and do it for me.
Yeah. I will say this too. If you go to a place and they say, do you accept this type of insurance? That's a sales call. I'm going right to that insurance place. And I will go down there, go talk to them. What do I got to do to be set up? I spoke to this, but just treat it like a normal sales call. And don't let anybody lie to you. And what I mean by that is I've had insurance companies tell me, well, we don't accept that. And look, maybe that's true, but when that patient needs to move, I've had insurance companies call me up and pay with a credit card. All this other stuff is just BS. There's no codes. They give me a credit card. So
that's a great point, because I think NEMT sales, I think facilities, health insurances are potentially really good customers.
Yeah, these are sales calls like anything else.
So Mackenzie asks, I have one van right now with a wheelchair ramp. When did you know it was time to get another vehicle? Right now she usually has one ride a day, private pay, clearing overhead, but not a big margin. And obviously a second vehicle is expensive. Christopher, you're a sales guy. Do you feel like you want to push the sales first and get too busy and then buy the vehicle? Or do you want to buy the vehicle before you're doing the sales so you can make sure you deliver?
Well, as a rule of thumb, what I did was, again, she's got one trip a day. I'm doing that one trip, and then I'm making sales calls. And I'm going to get that first van close to full-time, and then I know it's time to hire a full-time driver, and then buy a second van. And then it starts to shift a little bit where you're the overflow guy. And once that overflow guy, so I'm doing overflow and I'm doing sales. And again, just rinse and repeat. Once we're getting there, it's time to flip it.
That's
Buy
a
another
great
van. Yeah.
Completely agree. John asks, if a facility already has providers, are you still calling to get an agreement? How would you navigate those conversations? And I know you had talked about sort of, hey, let me be your backup provider, let me be your weekend provider. Is there any more sort of nuance or context you can add around that for John?
Well, so much of this is like, in a way, it's sort of bringing things full circle. So, and what I mean by that, we talked about having the relationship. Like if John knows a person in that facility that needs transportation, and we talked about getting her the blue bonnets or the book or whatever, and so going to be a day. So there's going to be a day where their current provider can't do it, and as long as you've got the woman with the flowers in the book talking about you, a lot of times they don't want to just sign an agreement until they work with you. Sometimes they want to do the agreement up front, but a lot of times you got to do the work first.
As a follow-up to that, are you really looking to get a signature on a piece of paper, or is that not important? You just need to leave your pricing so they give you a call.
It becomes important when we're talking serious work. And what by serious, I mean enough trips per week where they want credit. Okay, so we like you, we want to sign a service agreement with you, we're doing 10 trips a week, and we want to pay you every 90 days. So you're talking about a tremendous amount of money out of my pocket. So I want that crap in writing, and by the way, I don't extend more credit than I'm willing to walk away from. So, if you have 10 vans and you've been doing it a while, you might be able to give them that 90 days and bankroll, a few $1,000s, et cetera. If you can't afford to walk away from a couple of grand, like, again, you got one van, I'm not giving you 90 days credit. I got one van.
Yeah. So Tina asks, what do hospitals really focus on when choosing a transportation provider, and what should I prioritize to stand out? You had said earlier, like, the person signing the agreement cares about cost, and then the person, making the call cares about whether you say yes or not.
Yeah.
Can you sort of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I will tell you, I do this every single day. I almost never see somebody that's 24 hours. Again, like if you want hospital business and you say I'm 20, and by the way, I did that when I did my businesses. I didn't take a day off. I was 24/7 all the time. And, maybe when I got big enough, I had other drivers, work the times that I didn't. But again, if you want to do business with hospitals, discharges happen every hour, every day.
And I know I've talked to like people at hospitals, like ER discharge people, who say like, man, I appreciate it so much when you can take on the trip, taking like, I don't know, some, in a bariatric stretcher, 2 hours out of town that nobody else will take. If you will take that really rough trip, I'm willing to sort of give you all the easy, short distance, lucrative trips.
I say have as big a menu as possible, because you can charge for each stage of that. So yes, Mr. Customer, if they're on their own wheelchair, I charge this, but if I'm bringing mine, it's going to be this. If I need a bariatric chair, it's going to be a little bit more. And again, like you can almost get ridiculous. So, again, something like when I was in Little Rock, when it would snow, a lot of the hospitals had the contracts with ambulance companies, but the ambulance companies didn't work when there was ice or snow, but they still needed to go. So they would call me. So I kind of got the bottom of the barrel. Having said that, man, I have to charge my ice fees. It's in the service agreement. Yeah. So, I mean, you can get away with anything. And again, I'm going to get all the business because people are lazy. And if there's any say whatsoever, and that did happen in my case. In my case, it started off as a trickle. I barely got any business out of the hospitals. At the end of it, I was doing every single hospital in the area.
Wow. So McKinsey asks, how do you balance private pay and facility contracts? Like, someone calling in for my grandmother versus like the hospital or the rehab center or something. McKinsey says, lately my private pay rides have interfered with facility contracts, and I don't want the facility to start to not use me. Sort of pains of a one vehicle service. Do you have any advice there? Like, who do you prioritize if you have to pick?
Yeah, that's a tough call. And that's what I say when it's hard to be perfect. But it sounds to me like that's at it. We're bumping up against the wall of needing a second van.
Yeah, maybe it is time to buy that second van.
I will say this too on that last answer.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever takes this piece of advice. I say if you can find a competitor that's in the same situation, go make a buddy. And, I had one of my very first students do this, and their ability to use each other was amazing. And what makes it even more amazing is the government never got involved because they had a running spreadsheet. So, hey, you do this. It was a back scratching situation. And again, like I think it's wise to get to know your competitors. Most competitors, like I said, nobody's going to say. I mean, most people, when you go visit the competitor, they're going to be like, "Oh, get out of here." I mean, most of the time this is not going to work out. But if you can find a guy in the same situation as you, take advantage of it.
Yeah, and if you don't know anyone, like talk to your dispatch software provider. Like I can't tell you how many times me or my co-founder Jing has like introduced one of our customers to another, and now they're like passing rides back and forth, like two small providers in the same area. And it just helps so much to be able to overflow trips back and forth to each other. And whether you're charging a small fee on that or it's just sort of roughly equal numbers of trips, that can really help, and it takes some of the pressure off you when you only have a couple vehicles and you have some days where you just have too many trips or too few trips. So Tina also asks, how do you prevent no-shows and cancellations from hurting profits? That's a tough one.
No, I have a cancellation fee. Yeah, it's that simple. It's in every service agreement. Have a no-show fee or a canceled at the door fee or whatever.
Do you still apply that to like hospitals? In the case where it's maybe a
Absolutely.
hospital, they call you, but then the patient gets worse and can't go.
I have wait time, cancel time. Again, yeah, I'm putting all that in my service agreement.
And Mario's saying, like, I think this is a recurring question. You call somebody, they say, sorry, we already have an NEMT provider we like. What do you do from there?
The customer is never wrong, and you can't argue. And you have to just accept it and move on. But there's ways of delivering value and just being in the know and being a backup. And again, like you can't, it does happen. And again, like it happens every day where we already do business with the X, Y, and Z. And I will just say, can I share the information? I'd love for you to keep us in your back pocket for it in case there's an emergency. It almost works every single time. And now you've got a name and you're talking to someone. Okay, we're getting to the end. I'm going to give you the best advice possible. The hardest part of sales is coming back. We already had the conversation. I already told you we have a service provider. So you as the NEMT owner have to think, what is a good reason for me to go back? Go partner with a therapy dog person. Get yourself a therapy dog and go every single week and wear your non-emergency shirt, wear your van outside, leave the van open with the wheelchair down, leave everything. But I'm just here with my therapy dog.
That's incredible. My sister has a little miniature horse. I feel like, you could
exactly.
rake in the butts.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Megan asks, and this is a tough one, if I'm working with a friendly competitor sending trips back and forth, what's my liability exposure if I send my overflow to them?
Again, I'm not like, I always lead with the truth. And if I don't know something, I'm going to say, hey, I don't know. And like for me to know like in your area, but I will tell you, if there's going to be situations where you can use the competitor and situations where you can't. So, again, if you're with a hospital and you got a service agreement and we got okay. But if it's a situation where they say, oh, the customer's paying for this one, you could say to the customer, I'm swamped. I work with this guy. We've been doing business for years. It's not going to be John's NEMT. It's going to be Amy's NEMT showing up. Is that a problem? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So again, if we're talking a private pay, it doesn't even matter. I mean, if it's a facility, you got a great relationship with this facility. Hey, I normally use this competitor for the private pays when I can't do it, but I'm in a bind. I really trust him, but I obviously can't send him without your permission. So I mean, there's ways.
Yeah, I would say be a little careful with broker trips, because if you're farming out a broker trip to somebody else and they have not been like inspected, and
so that's a different.
Broker, they can audit you and you can get in trouble. But I think like with the private pay and the facilities, like absolutely you can usually work something out. All right, well I think we're about out of time here, and maybe Leah has a question here. We're never going to get off the call, Christopher. How often do you follow up people who haven't given you a no or a yes? Again,
it kind of goes back to the whole dating thing. What can I get away with and what do I feel comfortable with? I mean, there are times that like the feeling I get is this is a non-starter and so maybe that's the once every 6 months, once every 3 months. No, I'm not going to and the reason for me following up is to wait for a new person in that job. I'm not getting anywhere with this person, and I'll check in every 6 months and we'll see if we get a new person. So again, it's a little bit of your gut and how you're feeling.
And let me tell you, if you have a good relationship built up with, Becky at some local hospital, and then Becky takes a new job at a different hospital, that can be one of the easiest ways to get a new customer.
That's what I talk about, the seeds growing. So you do business over here, that person's going to eventually get a new job, and they get used to you saying yes. They get used to you, providing good values. I never lie or mislead my clients, and I let them know that like private pay sales is difficult. It is time consuming. It's going to take a while, but it is the better way because it's so much more stronger of a foundation.
Tina has a good question. What metrics do you track weekly?
I don't really do that. Again, I have a spreadsheet and I know who I talk to. And then because
more of an art than a science kind of guy.
Well, I would tell you that if I were selling for my own company, I would have a CMR that really lets you know, like you could put in there, be sure to follow up, What I do for my clients, I just put it on a spreadsheet and I track it. But it doesn't even matter. It's just however, and again, it goes back to the feeling on when to push, when to close, when to follow up. And my experience is in this industry, everybody's an adult. So the sales part is the relationship and just getting them to bring their guard down and talk to you and see you as a human. And they will volunteer. I like you and I like your company, but I think your rates are too high. Okay, Mr. Customer, what do I got to do at that point? So the customers are going to lead you more than you think. Your job is just to make the introduction, follow up, and do all the things you're supposed to do.
And Mario says, thanks, Christopher. I absolutely echo Mario's sentiment here. Mario asks, how can I get on a call with you about this? And I think there's the NEMT Alliance side and the NEMT Solutions Center side.
Yeah.
So maybe you could refresh our memory on how to get in touch with you.
If you go to the NEMT Solutions Center and you go to the packages, you'll see I've got like a bronze, a silver, a platinum, and then the NEMT Alliance package, and it takes you to that whole thing. And it's basically like a matter of, would you want to hire me to pick up the phone and make calls on behalf of your company, or would you want to learn how to do it on your own? And that's the break. So the Alliance members, I have every piece of knowledge I could ever know about non-emergency transportation sales in the Alliance, as well as other things, broker lists, needs analysis, service agreements, whatever you need is going to be there on the Alliance. So it's just a matter of preference, what fits your needs. And by the way, how would you get in touch with me? I'm the easiest guy in the world to get in touch with. I mean, you go to either one of my websites, my phone number's there. You type in Christopher Buell on Facebook, I'm gonna show up. So.
Great. Then maybe we take one more question here. Tina's saying, what's one expense new NEMT owners underestimate, whether that's sales or operations? Curious as to your thoughts.
I will tell you, I had a guy recently, and I almost don't know if I misheard him. I mean, it was something like $11,000 for 2 vans for insurance or something. Like it was breathtaking how expensive the insurance was. So, I mean, by the way, I kind of don't like, I had a couple successful non-emergency companies, but I don't like to present myself as Mr. Perfect. And I know everything about non-emergency transportation. In other words, I shut my second business down. I shut it down. I ran it for 4 years. It was successful, but I had a driver have an accident and my insurance rates doubled. And if I really, really wanted to stick with it, I probably could have weathered the storm, but I was tired and beat up. And like I told you, I eventually started traveling, and I wanted to do what I'm doing now. I wanted to do non-emergency transportation sales. Nobody had ever done it, and I just knew that I could do it. And so that's why I did it. And I live in the place that I want to live, and I'm thrilled every day to do this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right. Well, again, Christopher, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for all of this, really insightful, sort of practical tips that everybody can take away. Again, I'm James O'Donnell from Duet. If you want to chat with us about sort of dispatching software to help you grow your service, duetinc.com. And Christopher, go to NEMT Alliance or NEMT Solutions Center, and you can get a hold of him. So thanks again, everyone. And thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.